Learn how to build a multi-million dollar software business. How founder Dan MacDonald and his team are winning at BIS Safety Software. On today's episode of the Executive Wins Podcast. Welcome to the Executive Wins Podcast, where senior leaders share their biggest wins so you can get inspired and grow your business. Here's your host, Gordon Shepherd. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Gordon Shepherd. And before I get started, I just want to pass along some of the inspiring quotes that senior leaders have already shared on this show. Like on episode 12, when President and CEO Jody Abbott said, "I get things done, and I'm inspired by change, and being able to dig in an organization and bring them to something new and something different." Now, this attitude is absolutely foundational to the organization transformation that Dr. Abbott led at the University Hospital Foundation. Or how about on episode 10, when CEO Terry Davis said, "So I decided, you know what? I want to go out on my own and I want to do it differently." Now, that's one of our core values, is to do things differently. Now, this approach has helped Terry Davis lead her team in the development of a new recruiting software solution, and it's called Ulu. So if you want to get inspired and grow your leadership skills and more, check out our past episodes and keep listening to the Executive Wins Podcast. On today's episode, you'll learn how to build a multi-million dollar software business, how founder Dan MacDonald and his team are winning at BIS Safety Software. But before we get started, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by the Executive Wins Workshop. In this high-impact workshop, executive teams learn how to reverse engineer past wins in a structured way so they can get more wins in the future. This highly interactive session is for senior leadership teams who really want to improve profitability, processes, communication, and a whole lot more. I'll be your facilitator, bringing 25 plus years of experience and a proven system that you can learn to grow the overall results in your business. It's available in half-day, full-day, and customizable formats, and it's really good for team building and corporate retreats. There's also an in-depth version called a Wins Audit, and this is when I interview people from all levels of a company to find out how they get their wins, and then I deliver a summary to the executive team. And because I'm not in the family, the results are real. So if you are an executive who wants to find out how the people in your company get their wins, and then also get analysis about whether or not those wins are actually aligned with your strategy, then visit executivewins.com/workshops to learn more. And now on to today's show. We are lucky to be joined by Dan MacDonald, founder and team member at BIS Safety Software, a growing safety training software business based in Sherwood Park, Alberta. With users taking 30 to 40,000 courses every week, the business has annual revenues exceeding $20 million and could become a billion-dollar company in the next 10 to 15 years, according to visionary leader Dan MacDonald. You can learn more about the company by visiting trainanddevelop.ca. In this episode, you'll find out what it takes to be an entrepreneur who paid his mortgage with his mortgage while maintaining a positive attitude and choosing the right people at the right time to help his company scale. You'll also find out the benefit of reading hundreds of business books and actually applying what you learn. Because as you will see, Dan is not only a deep reader, but he puts what he reads into action. And before we get into it, I want to remind you that this interview follows a specific format that I created called The Anatomy of a Win, to help you learn the strategy, work plan, people, operations, and results behind every business win you hear on this show. I hope that you can use this approach to reach your next business milestone. And now here's Dan MacDonald with his executive win. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Gordon. Good to be here.
Well, it's really lucky for our audience to have you here because I think what we're going to hear is something like a 20-year overnight success story, if it makes it sound simple after you've put in the decades, but we get lucky to benefit from your experience here today as you share, your sort of cumulative win, I think, that you're going to be describing here coming up. But there's a lot of people maybe that don't know you and your company. If you had to describe yourself at a party, what would you say?
It's a tough one. Tough. Regular guy. Couldn't put too much to it. You know, um, Been with the same woman for 30 years, 2 kids, 2 grandkids. Love what I do, love work, love business, love reading about successes and entrepreneurs. And yeah, I got lucky. Just happened to fall into the business. So very thankful for where we are today.
It's such a humble response that we get from good Canadians so often in this sort of moment. And I really do mean to help the audience learn a little bit more about you, because certainly we spent a little bit of time in the pre-interview. There's some pedigree there. There's sort of the business that you've been running for sort of a couple decades. How'd you get kind of started in this business? And take me through the evolution of the business itself, and maybe add in the points where you were a bit influential along the way. Go ahead.
Yeah, of course. No, so I had a background with the Brick. So the Brick's it's a big billion-dollar retailer in Canada. There's hundreds of stores at 5,000, I think, salespeople at one point or another, and started by a guy here, Bill Comrie, right here in Edmonton. So again, another like he is, like incredible. Status. Like, the guy, I think, owned 5 private jets at one point in time, and, just was an incredible business owner, incredibly successful. And man, oh man, I could tell stories all day long, like just the most incredible experiences working with him. So I was there for about 14 years, got an opportunity to take on an external client of theirs, Cash Store Financial, Gord Rickdahl, and was just helping them with some add-on insurance for one of their products. And the Brick actually owned an insurance company, Tri-Global Insurance, that was a legitimate insurance company that covered all their extended warranties and insurance policies for their furniture coast to coast. And when I was helping them out, I got promoted to take on sales manager for the I think it was for the West for franchise. And at that time, I had to let these external clients know that I couldn't help them anymore. And one of them, Gord Rickdahl and his son Barrett, they said, "Well, we can't afford to lose you, but we can't hire you either. What are you thinking here?" And I said, "Well, I've always had this dream of starting my own business, Biz, and developing leadership training, because everything that I've done to date is thanks to what I've read from great leaders, the Sam Waltons of Walmart and Invar Kamprads of IKEA and stuff. So I'd love to teach that stuff full time and develop programs and training on that." So they said, "Okay, come back next week, bring a 1-page document with the idea, cost, and we'll go for lunch." And I came back a week later, and they looked at it, and I thought, shoot high, so I came back with this number, 2 days a week or 4 days a week or whatever it was, and they just looked at it and looked at me and signed it and shot it back to me and said, "Don't have time for lunch. See you next month." And so I quit my job after 14 years. And funny aside story, we watched Fun with Dick and Jane, where Jim Carrey loses his job, and they're so broke that they're stealing grass from the neighbors and putting little patches of grass and holding up their neighbors at the ATM machine with a hoodie and a fake gun. And me and my wife looked at each other and we thought, did we just do that? Is that our future? So anyway, we started Biz Training. It was just leadership training. We did workshops. We landed a bunch of big clients, internet, like Rona, Home Depot, Hagen Pet Foods, Nate, like some big international names, and the business just took off. So I was like, just running, doing training, probably at one point or another on a flight going somewhere 23 days a month I was on the road. And my wife's like, "Hey, you've got 2 young kids. You're never going to see them grow up." And she said, this is not going to work out. And that's when we decided to make the change, and we moved from leadership training, in class leadership training, to online leadership training, because everything I did was theory. So I presented it to the clients and said, "Hey, here's what it would cost to build the courses. Here's what it would cost to build the systems to deliver it. here's what I'm charging you now, and here's the hotel bills, travel bills, gas bills, food bills. And I think it was for one client, $1.38 million savings a year. And they're like, where do I sign? Like, done. So we moved into online, and then in 2008, 2009, we were helping a couple of companies in safety get into the online business with their products. And 2008, 2009, we had companies that were literally laying off 800 of 900 people. And they're like, Dan, we can't do leadership training anymore. Like, it's gone. Like, we can't afford to do anything. And I'm like, I don't blame you, you know. But safety shot up like a rocket ship. It went 400% growth. And in discussions with some of our the other companies that are in the same vein, they experience that same growth. Danatech and e-compliance and stuff, from what I've heard from those guys, experience that exact same growth in that same time period. So we decided, if we're going to do this, you can't be two things. You can't be pizza and Chinese food too. We got to be one thing. So we're either leadership or safety. Can't be both. So we decided to go leadership. And we decided to go, safety, let's go world class, and we dropped leadership. Never did another class.
These are big inflection points. I mean, you're at the Brick. You probably could have led a nice life there. There was an opportunity that came up. There's something super entrepreneurial about you, about showing up with one sheet and getting people to sign things. And then you're on the road and you're 23 days, and then you got to go negotiate with your wife, because you got two young kids. And so there's some moments there, and then you've got this moment, and you just made this big drop. You're saying, wait a second, we're going to focus on the safety. This is where the puck is going. It sounds like you've figured out where the puck is going at certain major points all along the way in the growth of your business now. Is that fair?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I can answer that accurately. Like, give me more on that. Like, what do you
what I mean to say is, you're at a moment where you're saying, well, we can go leadership or we can go safety. We've seen the growth in safety. We're going to make that choice. It's hard to let go of your babies, like, when you've grown up that other part of your business. So that's a big deal. And then you knew you were going to kind of walk down that path at that point. I mean, it's not just numbers that drive those types of decisions, is what I mean to say.
Yeah, no, and I hear you. And to be fair and honest, it's the books. Like, if you read 1,000, I probably read hundreds and hundreds. I don't know if I hit 1,000, but I'm sure I've come close or exceeded it over the last 30, 40 years. But if you read enough of those books, it becomes so clear. I try to describe it, if you've ever taken a penny, put it under a piece of paper and a pencil, and went back and forth. Every time you read a book, it's like a scribble, and after a while, you'll get this clear picture of what's underneath that penny, and that's what I see. So, James Dyson, right? The Dyson vacuums and the hair dryers, and he made an electric car, and just an incredible entrepreneur, like, so successful. 8 billion, I'm sure, is his net worth by now. But started off with a wheelbarrow and dominated the wheelbarrow market, but it's super small. And he's like, wow, I was number one in wheelbarrows, and there's nothing here. So got into the vacuums, and it was just, but his thing was, you can't, it's got to be one thing. Like, and you hear it again and again and again. You try to throw somebody one tennis ball, they'll catch it, good odds. But you try to throw them 3 or 4 tennis balls, the odds of them catching it now go down substantially. The odds of them catching one go down substantially. So in the messaging, in what you do, in everything about you, there's a ton of books on this, where retailers try to get into so many things. And again, I watched it at the Brick. He tried lawnmowers, he tried jewelry counters, he tried this. And then one day, he just got so focused. And, anybody, you can imagine how many people would come to him with these ideas, and a lot of them great ideas probably, and he would just have the same phrase: I'm just a simple sofa sales guy, just trying to sell a few sofas. And that's his, phrase in my mind, from my experience, that he would say to keep it simple, to keep it on track, because you can get lured away, and it probably costs him a fortune, right? Like Furniture 2000 in the U.S., probably cost him a fortune. You know, the jewelry stores, I think we were blowing them out at 99% off watches and rings and stuff for 6 months, trying to clear up that jewelry store and disassembling that. But after he learned his lesson the hard way, and I thought, I don't want to be that guy to have to go through those pains. I'd rather just learn from James and Bill and these guys and say, you know, let's, and all those decisions you're talking about, I had enough pain from, you know, reading those stories or seeing what those guys did to say, oh my God, I don't want to do that. It would have broken us. Like we would have been dead.
Incredible. How wonderful. Well, I think we could just sort of bring you on as a book reviewer to give us the short versions of all the 1,000 books that you've read, because you're being eloquent about all these lessons. You can see you're a terrific teacher in there too, because you got those great analogies and they're very fast. We've got a good sense of who you are, where you took the business at that inflection point, 08, 09, got into the safety training thing hard in the online safety training thing. And then here we are, 2025. And so how would you describe, just give me a few sentences on how you would describe the current state of your business so that we just locate us for where we got to.
Yeah. So now we're this year, I think we're approaching pretty well close to 200 people. So, you know, hundreds of team members on the team. The online system, like the velocity. So we sell online courses. People will do an hour or 2 hour online course. We'll do in excess of, I think, 30 to 40,000 every 7 days. Like it's just, the volume is insane. Digital forms and paperwork that people fill out, again, probably 30 to 40,000 each week. You know, there's probably 500,000 people get added just organically to the system. New people get added to the system every year. Like the numbers are just staggering. And so we're about, you know, we just exceeded, you know, probably 21 million last year in sales. You know, some sizable infrastructure in place to manage all the systems, a sizable team now to manage all of the customers. And we're on that journey from the 20, 30 million to the 50, 100 million, which is the next jump. And it's actually, if you look up on ChatGPT or other places, I'm sure it got it from somewhere, but there's actually, you know, a half a dozen stages of growth for software companies like ours, which was interesting to me because it just nailed it. It says, hey, first $1 million, product market fit. And I think I shared this story with you, but it's funny. Our first year we did $100,000, and silly me stood up. I stood up on a chair at the Christmas party at a restaurant, and I'm in the restaurant. I stood up on a chair and I said, hey guys, if we hit $1 million next year, I'm taking all of you to Hawaii. Everybody's going to, all three of you going to Hawaii. 10 years later, we get $1 million in sales. And then the next year we did 3, and then we did 5, and then we did, you know, and like, I think we did $1 million in the last couple of weeks, you know, last 10 days. So it's interesting to see, you know, the thinking, right? So product market fits a small pros. So right now going from the 2030 to 50, 100, it's building the executive team. So we got to start over the next few years finding like a CMO, a chief marketing officer, a sales manager, like a CRO, chief revenue officer. We'll probably start needing, so we'll probably have to build out like a team of VPs, a team of managers, a team of whatever it is, but we've got to start finding where those gaps are and start building that. That's part one. We're rolling out business operating system like EOS and Metronomics and all those different great systems. We chose for us scaling up. So we've got a coach and we've got the team members trained on it. So we're really excited about building that up. That's kind of another part of this growth phase. But building out the structure and really we're just in the final stage of moving from a lot of generalists. Like we had a person that used to do 6 different jobs. Now we have one person dedicated to just one screenshots, a single person dedicated to just designing, you know, a single person just for, you know, instruction pages or whatever. So we went from generalists to specialists in a big way, and that's where the jump was, where we went from like 30, 40 people to 100 and some people, right? And we're continuing to do that, building out those specialists.
It's interesting to hear you talk. somehow listening to you, there's no doubt that you're about to do what you're saying you're going to do. What a remarkable thing. And you know what it's like at 6 figures. You know what it's like at 7 figures. You know what, now you're in the 8 figures, and you're going to keep moving those figures up as you kind of go forward. And you're putting the pieces in place at your different levels of development. And it sounds like you've just been a lifelong student of business to be able to absorb not only the people that you've worked with, but also the literature and distill that in a way to help guide, I'm sure, your growth throughout this time. That's just wonderful. So now we know a little bit about you and what it takes and some of those inflection points. We know a little bit about kind of where the company is at right now and just the volume that you're doing to help people in the safety online space every week at that high level of volume. I always like to jump in here and say, if you had to describe your biggest win in this whole venture, how would you describe it?
Tough. I'm a big believer. It's that pushes on a flywheel. It's a lot of little, pushes to get it up to speed. So there's not one big win. But for us, if there's one big area, it's the team, right? Finding the right people. So and I don't want to kind of say I'm good at this because, it's like, there's good and then there's like professional level mastery. There's no comparison, but I'm pretty good. Better than a lot at finding good people. So I can't spell, color, write, draw, graphics. Nothing. I don't have any skill set, but I do have a reasonably good nose for talent. And at the Brick, when I was there, I would hire an assistant buyer in my buying category, and within weeks, they'd be promoted to some other department. And sometimes it got to a point where I'd hire somebody, and before they even sat in the chair, I'd get the manager knocking on my door and say, "Hey, that guy, we're going to put him over here, a category that really makes money for the company. Dan, electronics, it's cute, but there's no margin. This girl, this guy, they're really good. Like, good job on getting them on the team, man. Oh man." And every time I had, and the last guy I hired, we found him in, I think, cost accounting, and it took me 6 months. I got him, I got him tickets to the Oilers games, box seats, got him box seats for, the great, and finally got him over. And he didn't last a day. And now he's my boss's boss's boss. He runs all of merchandising for the entire company at the Brick. They're still there to this day and doing an extraordinary job. But, would he have made that jump from cost accounting to product merchandising, being a global traveler? I don't know, right?
Well, so you've got a nose for talent, which is probably a good sign because you've got the win that I heard in there. I'm just going to say is all those spins on the flywheel combined. Is that the way to describe it?
Yeah, and a team, they did all the work, right?
And they did all the work. So again, it's fun for me to explore this. Often people will have sort of one moment or one thing they're describing. What we're hearing now, I think the win here is the cumulative 20 plus years of work that you've put in to kind of get this to happen. And I love it because there's so much to explore in there. And if we had to go back then and look at this win and what it takes, I like to introduce what I call the anatomy of a win, to have a structured conversation about this. And that is, what is the strategy, the work plan, the people, the operations, and the results behind the win? So I guess I'm going to take us back to maybe that 2008, 2009 time. And if you had to think about the strategy back then, because I'm sure the strategy obviously has evolved as you scale, was there a vision? Was there values that made this happen? What a goal? Like, what would you say if you had to describe the strategy at that point?
I think survival was probably because 208, 209, for the first 6 years, we were running off of debt. Like, we had no money, no investors, no people helping us out. We were paying our mortgage with our mortgage. We had no money for anything. Like, we couldn't, I kid you not, I was not allowed to call Calgary for a sales call because we couldn't afford the 3 cents a minute. Like, there's just no way. And if I had to take a client for lunch, it's like, well, let's not do the keg. Let's see if they're okay with Wendy's, right? Like, it was that bad. I shouldn't say bad because, it was an exciting time. You're fighting through it. So for us, it was just pure survival in that 208 time. And then when you saw the markets collapse, the banks, who's heard of a bank going out of business? Like, it's like your money is gone. Like, it just evaporated. I can't even tell you how many billions of dollars were, just gone in a day when that happened. So, and then the aftermath. So we were in just survival mode, I think, at that time, and it just we looked at the cold hard numbers. We saw leadership, I think, and I'm just guessing at a number here just for the effect, but I think it took a 50-60% drop. And I'm pretty sure the online safety stuff, which was small because you only make maybe $1 per course completion, where you can make $5,000 or $10,000 on a speaking engagement. The online course stuff shot up 400%. So we just looked at those two, and it was just so obvious. It's like, where's the future? And safety is. I love this Thomas Stanley, Millionaire Next Door and The Millionaire Mind and all those books. He's like, one of the most successful entrepreneurial businesses are always in the non-sexy industries. You don't want to be in nightclubs. You don't want to be in restaurants. You want to be in garbage contracting and paving and plumbing. And there's just so much runway. There's so little competition. Not everybody's fighting to get into those businesses. So your chances of success go up by a multiple. So with that knowledge, the knowledge of we can only pick one thing from, Dyson and Bill, from the knowledge of, we've got to survive, we just looked at those two numbers and said, well, there's the future. How do we do it great?
Wonderful. So very focused with that strategy and fun. I wish we were here for hours and hours and hours, because I think there are strategy leveling up moments along the way. We could do it by dollars sort of thing, in the way that you eloquently said, well, we were here, then we were here, and there are these stages of growth that simply you've run the playbook on. I'm going to say not easily, because that first 10 years to your million was its own journey, and I imagine sleeping at night would have been its own toss and turn as you kind of got through those stages. Every strategy needs a work plan. We've got to be able to go, execute on what that looks like. So you said we've got the survivalist mode, but we've also got that focus element as well. If we had to draw out the timeline in these last years, what are the highlights along the work plan, inflection points? Now, we talked about scaling up the staff at certain points. So you've already mentioned that along the way. Any other kind of highlights that you would say with the work plan that kind of made certain moments go? Investments in software, investments in specialists, moments that really made a big difference?
Yeah, nothing really stands out, because the growth itself, if you look at it on a chart, it's outside of COVID, it's pretty flat. Like, it's the same growth for 19 years now. The investment in technology was always there. We poured every possible cent we had into building the technology and some. So it was always a reinvestment there. And, every month there was just new customers coming in, new customers signing up at a very steady rate. So, I mean, even though, like you said, challenging, troubling, right? Like, I'm sure my wife, had a few, many sleepless nights, when you're paying your mortgage with your mortgage. But, I always saw the customers coming in. I got the calls, customers like, hey, we're going with you. We're so excited. We can't wait. Here's a deposit. And I saw that side of it, where she's in the back, looking at the accounting, looking at the bills, and bless her heart, like, probably didn't share those feelings with me, because, it's like it would have ruined my spirit and crushed, maybe taken away, because I was so excited. I'm like, oh man, business is growing. Look at it grow. Everything's great. I'm always happy. And she's like, if he only knew the truth, it's like, I don't know where payroll's coming from next week.
Oh my goodness, what a time. What a time. And it's amazing. And thanks for sharing those moments, because it's not like you're here today where you've gotten to. It's well earned along the way in terms of making those jumps and making those things happen. I remember in the pre-interview, there was a key guy that you got in that you mentioned, some genius people along the way, and maybe not just one. Maybe you can take me through at least one or two of those examples, I think, along the timeline.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So there's quite a few, but a couple of highlights. So the first one was our first salesperson, 10 years. It says 10-year. I could probably turn the camera a little bit, but you can see his today is his 10-year anniversary. So 10 years ago he started, and he came in. We had a 900 square foot office, maybe block from here. It was just this little, now we're in 25,000 square feet of open space, but 900 square feet. He came in and the back wall was painted green because we used it as a green screen. And I had this clear glass desk and we sat down for an interview. And right away, I'm like, oh my God. I'm calling my wife. I'm like, gotta get in here right now, get in here. We gotta hire this. And he didn't even he quit his job in Calgary, just drove up because his girlfriend was moving up here, drove up here and just wasn't even worried. He's like, oh, I'll be able to find a job in a heartbeat. And he had like 4 or 5 offers and we gave him an offer right away. And he came back and, negotiated a little bit for this or that. And the most incredible sales guy, like he learned the software. It takes sometimes 3 months for our new salespeople to learn the software. The first 2 weeks or 3 weeks, he was at a trade show in BC, and I did the presentation of the software a few times, and I did it the first couple of times that morning, and then I listened to him for the rest of the day, and every time he nailed it, not one thing wrong, and I'm like, phew. And then I think it was 2-3 months later, and I was working to get an agreement with these 3 big unions, associations, these big contracts. And he comes in, like walks in the office, like nothing, just after lunch. And he goes, oh, hey, by the way, those 3 big, the Alberta Construction Safety Association, the CLAC Union, the manufacturer, I signed them all up. And I'm like, BS. There's no, he goes, yeah, here's the signed contracts. And I'm like, I've been working on them for years. Like I'm going for dinners and lunches and drinks and nothing. And he comes in, it's like one day, he's like the Pied Piper. Hey, sign this. Okay. Anyway, and not only that, extraordinary, like we had a reseller program where they would get commission, not him. So he would get 0 commission. And he is a commission salesperson. And he would jump in his car and drive to Calgary on his own dime to help them sell a client. And I'm like, you make no sales on that. You make no commission on that. And he goes, yeah, but Dan, it's good for the company, right? And if it's good for the company, it's good for everybody. And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, perfect. It's good for the company. And he did that all the time, and it just blew me away. He just would help out of the goodness of his heart, and just unbelievable. 2, we had a company we deal with. They've got about 300 or 400 software programmers in southern India and Trivandrum, and the CTO over there 15 years ago, just this genius level, programmer, like just an insane, we used to joke and call him Yoda, and like he's just so good. Like he would, I remember I went to India and I said, hey, your boss, Sachin, he's really good, right? And she goes, oh, you have no idea. He walks around, and we deal with hundreds of companies all over the world, and he'll walk and look at a wall of code on TVs, and they've been struggling for, days trying to figure out this problem. And he'll look at it and yep, boom, fix it. And they're like, oh my God. And he does that all day, just boom, 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 boom. And he's just that kind of guy. And when we wanted to hire a manager for our technology team here, we called and said, hey, we want to make sure you're part of the process. We want you in the interviews. And the owner, one of the owners over there, he says, hey, how about our CTO? And I'm like, yeah, he's looking to move to Canada. I'd rather him work for, you than somebody different. And I'm like, yeah. So anyway, he gave me a number. I said, there's no way I can come close to that number. I can give you, half of that. And he goes, I trust you. I know you'll make it right. Let's do it. And he came over, and oh my God. But just an incredible, and we've had a lot, like I could go on for hours, but those are 2 examples.
Isn't that lucky? So we've heard, again, the strategy, the work plan, a few moments in there. We're getting into the people side of things. And one of the pieces you can hear clearly when I talk about the people, what are their roles, what are their responsibilities, but also what are their attitudes. And you can hear in spades that simply your sales guy showed up with the right attitude, one that you couldn't interview for. You know what I mean? You see that demonstrated over and over again. You can hear your excitement through this as well. Like, the customers are coming in. This is working. You can hear your wife managing to not go crazy, right? Do you know what I mean? In early days, right? And then you get another highly motivated person who just happens to be, and talk about good timing, like just, oh, we're going to switch countries and happen to be Johnny on the spot for that one there. That's remarkable. And how lucky to be surrounded with these good people. And I'm sure in the hundreds of others that you have involved, we'd go through a big long list of everybody that's contributing, including what I would describe from having visited your facility and being aware of part of your success story, your customer service people are just, and it's funny, I don't know a ton about your business other than I've had other people they'll know a little bit about what I do in my work, and they'll say, oh, I've got an app. I just spent 6 months. I developed an app. I'm like, do you have an onboarding team that's going to go handhold people to make sure that your app goes out in the world? And then they're not successful, but they've got that excitement because they love building something. But you folks are way beyond that with your customer service team. How would you describe your customer service team throughout this journey, just as a group?
Yeah, really good. So we made a decision, a conscious decision to keep it in-house. So we didn't want to offshore to save some money. We wanted, like, they're all right here. 7 days a week, they're here, 6 in the morning till probably 8 at night, they're here. We found somebody in people and culture that's just got a great nose for talent, especially cultural fit. And we've just had a slew of extraordinary over and above, like every week. And I'm not in touch with the customers that much anymore, but every week I feel like I get at least an email or a phone call just to say, hey, I know you're busy, but I just wanted to say your team is extraordinary. Like, they just go above and beyond. And, it's I'd like to say it's a core value, but that just does not cut it. It's got to be something that's ingrained in the heart and the DNA and going over and above. So we do our best. We probably don't do a great job, but we do our best to reward that, to talk about that, to focus on that, to give the team the ability to say, hey, I don't care what Monaris says. If a customer calls and complains and you feel that they're in the right, give them their money back. If that's what they want, give them their money back. And I don't care if I have to personally cut a check and drive over to their house to get their money back because Monaris or the payment gateway can't do it. Like, let's make that happen and make that right no matter what, right? And again, I'd like to take molecule of credit, but can't. That's hundreds of books with Bernie Marcus from Home Depot, educating his team, or Bill Comrie. Oh, I'll tell you one story about Bill, and I don't know if I can tell this right, but there was one time somebody was yelling at one of his customer service reps in the old store downtown in the Brick, and they're screaming at the customer service rep, and it was like 6 o'clock at night and on a Saturday, and Bill was in the very back office. And he came out and he jumped on a desk, and there's 20 rows of desks, and he starts running on top of the desks, and paper and staplers are flying, and he's coming, and the customer's behind the counter, and he sees this guy, and the customer goes back into this couch in the waiting area, and Bill jumps down in front of him like Spider-Man, and he goes, don't you ever talk to my people like that again, or I will come after you. I'm going to give you all your money back, and I want you to promise me never to spend a dime in my stores again. I don't want your money. And the customer service two people are like, tell me how fast that story got around. But when you grow up in that, how can you not be a huge fan of that? And I tell you, it's to me, it's just part of being successful in business.
Well, and how lucky especially in your software development thing, I think I got a whiff of, there's just always new things that you're learning from your customers that you can then implement. And that list sort of becomes unlimited in software development for how far you can go and scale. And of course, more about it than I do, but the idea of the fact that you've invested in this area, it's not ship it, hear that it's busted, adjust over 6 months or a year. You know what I mean? It's this iterative process. So I think that's just remarkable. And you can hear again in the people section, the attitudes coming out in spades from everybody, which is just wonderful. And it really does speak to, again, just the plain way that you're speaking. Oh yeah, well, we're here. And then now we're going to be here. Like, that's pretty remarkable, but you've taken the time to build in those right team members. The fourth step is operational, if you had to describe it. And you said you've always been consistently investing in the software itself. There might be, I'm going to say, safety standards, legal, operational elements? You've said you've scaled up your location, this kind of thing. Are there any sort of highlights or moments when you talk about this sort of win over 20 years, in a sense, that you would say might stand out operationally?
Honestly, it's probably more my wife Carmen. She's extraordinary at that side, and we've built a big team, to help support her. So we've got an in-house lawyer, we've got a general manager that helps out. We've got a operations person that helps out, and they there's quite a structure that they built. And I honestly, I don't know if you ever read Shoe Dog, with Phil Knight from Nike. But in that autobiography, he'll tell stories where he would, be daydreaming, drive to the store, walk around the grocery store, come back home, still daydreaming, and not pick up any of the groceries his wife just sent him out for. And then one time he was daydreaming so much he drove his car right into a tree, and then he just left it there, walked home like nothing happened. And he's just got his mind on business. I'm not Phil Knight, but I would describe myself as being more towards that, always head in the clouds, always thinking about the future. And then the operations side, I mean, Carmen and the team here is extraordinary. Couldn't do anything without them. Like I remember one time I came back, it was about 12 years ago, and I said, hey, we should do a magazine. And I literally drew a stick man on a napkin, and then I drew a little line around the stick man, and I drew 3 lines underneath that to be copy text, and I gave them the napkin. And then I kid you not, it was like, a month later they come back with a 60-page color brochure with interviews and write-ups and ads, and I'm like, oh, that's great. That's exactly what I was thinking with that stick man. And it's like, how do you turn that into, a real magazine, right? So incredibly blessed that side. I don't have the wherewithal of what happens after I come up with an idea. The one thing I did learn that I think I'd love to share is that in my mind, like in some programs, you'll hear visionary over top of the integrator, and they come up with the vision. I don't think it's this relationship. I think it's side by side. Like you really got to fight it out in a good way, a healthy way, to say, here's my idea. And then they're like, here's reality. Here's what's possible, here's what's not. And somehow meet somewhere in there. But it can't be just, here's what I'm thinking, go do it. Or here's what our limits are, go do it. Because Bill was the best for that. Like he didn't have the money for his Home Depot idea, or his home show idea. And it was like, and I can't even remember, 500,000 square foot showroom. But he went out and sold it. He sold, Sony. He says, okay, I'm going to make a shrine for Sony. You guys pay me $100,000 for this one room, and it's going to be Sony everything. It's going to highlight Sony on the wall, Sony TVs, Sony this or that. And then he goes to Natuzzi and he sells a big Natuzzi section. And it's going to feel like a piece of Italy. It's going to have a little, cappuccino maker. It's going to have this. And he would sell that to get enough money to pay for the whole store before he even broke ground. But that's like he could think like nobody I've ever met. Do you know what I'm saying?
But in the meantime, you've been lucky to be married to your wife who can balance you out. In pre-biz, it sounds like there's a pre-biz world, then there's a biz world, and there's growing together. There's a whole other episode that we could do about marriage and entrepreneurship that I'm sure would be its own. Its own. I don't know if you've read all the books for that one, but there you go. And so we've got through the strategy, the work plan, the people, the operations. Finally, there's the results, qualitative and quantitative. What are the highlights and the results that you like to talk about for this 20-year win?
You know what? Just very proud to be a part of the team here. Like I can't take much credit for, because like I said, it's almost 200 people doing all the work. I put in my hours, but it doesn't even come close to the total sum of hours everybody else puts in. But just extraordinarily proud to be in this. And I really truly believe this could be a $1 billion, organization in the next 10 to 15 summers pretty easily. And I just want to be that great place that really makes a difference in workplace safety, right? There's a lot of garbage out there. We fight against, people trying to make a quick buck, helicopter safety, a 5-minute course for $95. And, we fought those battles to say, because people would say, oh, online, oh, it's bad. And it's like, well, the truth is there's good, bad, and ugly in everything, right? There's good, bad, and ugly in instructors. There's good, bad, and ugly in training providers. There's good, bad, and ugly in online courses. And we said, okay, if we're going to win, we got to be great. We can't even, let them hold a candle to us on that side.
Clear vision, clear process all the way through. It sounds like you're going to be on the way to scaling it all the way up there. I really appreciate that you took the time to share your win here on the show here today. If you had to describe, sort of sum this all up for the win, just say the win is, and maybe give your one suggestion on leadership for the leaders that are listening. Go ahead and just sort of wrap it up for us.
Yeah. The win is just people. Like, I've literally done 1,000 interviews to find one person, and you read Elon Musk, literally same thing. Like, he interviewed 3,000 people at Tesla before, he stopped interviewing, and he still was interviewing so great people, but here's the thing. A lot of entrepreneurs will hear that, oh yeah, great people, I've heard that before. That's like reading a book and thinking you're going to play like Tiger Woods the next day. There's reading it, understanding it, applying it, and then 10 years of work to get to a fraction of mastery before you're good at finding great people. Because most people, when I meet them, and it's like, oh yeah, Tom's a gem, I hire them, and I was like, oh my God, they're not a gem, the opposite of a gem. So, people would be the second one, and then your second question was?
Well, it just sort of that sort of people is the driving factor to this win in terms of what you're thinking about. And then if you had a lesson for a leader, like what do you like to pass along for any leader that might be listening to this? That if you had to give them one or two nuggets, what would they be on the way out?
Yeah, no, the one just reading. Reading. I take an hour a day, hour of power, whatever it is, but literally, and I'd read the people who have done it, not I haven't built a popsicle stand, but here's 5 pillars of leadership. I would read about leaders who have accomplished great things, whatever it is, Home Depots, whatever, but all those lessons can be applied. That reading was by far, it became so clear that what we needed to do from that. So that's the biggest blessing I've ever had, is just that desire to learn.
Your library card must be worn out. Dan, thank you so much for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Gord. Appreciate it.
Choose the right people, create the right tension between the visionary and operations, and read deeply and apply what you learn. Now that is how Dan MacDonald has helped BIS Safety Software to be successful. Thank you, Dan, for sharing your well-read win. And if you enjoyed listening to this episode, then make sure to check out our other episodes, which include how senior leaders can win by getting an executive medical. And that's with Dale Plett, the Business Development Manager for Unlimited Medical Centers. And if you and your leadership team want to learn how the executive planning system can help you to optimize your entire organization, then visit executivewins.com to learn how. You can also subscribe to the Executive Wins monthly newsletter to stay up to date on the podcast, live events, education opportunities, and more. Visit executivewins.com/newsletter to sign up. And if you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe, and share it with a fellow leader. And don't forget to check out our resources and links in the show notes. And keep listening to the Executive Wins podcast for more inspiring wins that will help you grow yourself, your team, and your entire business. Thanks for listening to the Executive Wins podcast. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe as we bring you more inspiring wins from outstanding leaders so you can grow your business.